Good evening, one and all. I think everything is operational for tonight. We have our audio cleared. Let me double check that I can hear it on the stream side.
Audio problems. There we go. Much better. Now I gotta wait for the to play. All right, we are off to the races. It has been a pretty severe illness week, and so I was out of commission for a while, for those that are curious. And for those that were not curious, now you know why I have not been here all the same. So, anyway, I will not be speaking a whole lot tonight. Of course, we'll see how long I can last for that, because you know me, I have, if you know me, you know that I find it very hard to do this and not talk. It's my fault. Anyway, holler if you have anything you want to mention. By the way, can I say yet again how much I totally, completely, without any sort of remorse, hate AI. AI is so utterly obnoxious and troublesome, and they act like somehow it is the future. I say act because, it's not guaranteed to be the future. It could be a temporary issue, but it will not last forever, because mankind cannot allow a machine to take over. Nor do I think God would allow that. All right, so for tonight, we are going to be mirroring this leg and then doing some corrections and proceed from there. There's something I've been pondering for some time. I've hinted at it on the occasion, but I think I'm getting closer to wanting to do like a full-length discussion on it. There was a guy that I got to meet some time ago. He was very much a tech guru. And in his worldview, he thought there was nothing that could come about that could potentially subvert progress. Now, you know that I've raised concerns before about how, while there are always exceptions to technology advancement and there's problems that can occur, but this guy did not have any sort of restraint when it came to it. All head on into the future. Well, that sounds great, right? The ability to have all these fancy new gadgets, flying cars, jetpacks. Notice a lot of the future utopian advancements all revolve around flying. Free food, easy jobs. There was an episode of The Jetsons where the main character jams his finger pressing a button, and that's considered an injury because it's his button pressing finger. Laughable. But it's important to kind of think about, because what happens if all technology advancements take place? Every last one of them that you can imagine. What's the end goal? Honestly, what is the end goal? Is it to have so much leisure time you never have to work again? All you have to do is worry about your button pressing finger? So this guy was, that I knew, he was all gung-ho about tech. Nothing could dissuade him from it. What happens when somebody like that encounters the horror of all his technological dreams coming true? Horror? What are you talking about? The button pressing finger. How is that a horror? Well, it's because it's a lack of purpose. See, what a lot of utopian films fail to mention about is what happens when you get everything. The psychological breakdown that happens. I think we're living through it right now. I think it is happening right as we speak. We as a country reached a utopia status, which lasted not even 10 years. I think that was what we would identify as the 90s. Technological innovation, shooting to the moon. And then it all just stopped. Since then, we've been in more of a dystopia instead of a utopia. Surveillance state gets worse. Freedoms disappear. And continue to disappear. And we're left wondering, is it all over? This kind of goes back to what I've been mentioning about beforehand, which is the idea of that people that live in suffering dream of heaven, and people that live in heaven, given enough time, start dreaming of hell. I'm quoting my Vietnamese friend who told me that, who suffered legitimately and came from a country that had suffered legitimately, and noticing how we had an obsession with death and darkness. So, if you have your utopia, how long until it bores you? And what sort of horrible things will come about as a result? Apparently now I don't know the story very well, because I intentionally try and avoid it because it's so dark. Apparently there is a movie that came out about a rich man that kind of lost his marbles and went on a killing spree as a result. And that was because his world had become a utopia. And that's the only thrill he could get. Don't wish for leisure. Don't wish for everything to be solved by technological innovation or money or whatnot. It will never be enough. We need, as human beings, to have something to struggle against. If we don't have something physical to struggle against, we start to struggle psychologically, and eventually it breaks us. Imagine that. Everything that you ever wanted, all the food in the world, all the health in the world, all the joys. But there's one problem. You live in a sinful body. And as such, your sinful nature starts to then crave excitement. And rather than the joy of leisure, when you only have leisure, it becomes the joy of the thrill. And that's where terrible things happen. I think that's what happened to our elites, honestly. I think things got too perfect for them, and they started trying to pursue something darker. Makes you wonder. So no, I'm not a fan when I see something like AI come along and offer utopia. There's no such thing. And every time we try and pursue that as a human species, people suffer. People die. People meet a terrible, horrible, psychological destruction that completely robs them of every joy that they once held, that they kind of like became snobbish about, kind of like, I don't want this. Suddenly that gets robbed from them because of their behavior, and then it's gone forever. And all their descendants have to look forward to is destruction. Or is that a bad thing? Their descendants get a chance to rebuild from where their parents failed, or their grandparents, or in our case, our leaders and the elites who held on to their utopia so much, and they didn't notice what it was doing to them, their families, and the nation. I do think there's a consequence coming. What that looks like, I really don't know. I got a strong suspicion that it's going to result in something terrible. But I don't truly know what it will be. Nor do I really want to know, necessarily. But what I do want to know is whether or not people will wake up and become wiser, so that this horrible event, whatever it is, doesn't destroy us. lest, another nation rise up and take our place. Because that's a very real possibility. I'm not a fan of that happening. I actually like our culture. I mean, sure, we've had our problems, but I still like it. I think that there's goodness to our culture. I think God probably is more happy with our culture than not. But I don't know that for certain. One thing we gotta make sure, though, is that we don't become arrogant as we move forward in this world. Because we had plenty of people in our culture who became arrogant. Our elites in particular is what I'm referring to. Arrogant, and they sold everything out. The benefits of being post-illness. Anyway, don't pursue utopia and think that somehow it will solve all of your desires. If anything, it's going to rob you of them. I gotta say, this technique is really helpful for trying to rough out the idea, and then refining it makes it so much easier. Like this, it looked good in silhouette, but now that I've gotten it kind of colored, I realize it's lost a lot of its mass. But by doing the slow buildup of the character animation, I can go back and easily make changes. I'm going to get some more water before continuing. Hey there, Jersey. How's it going? One of the challenges of trying to do this type of artwork is that sometimes you're working with too little detail, and so thus trying to come up with realistic looking stuff can sometimes get thwarted just by losing track of where a character's position is. And I think I just stumbled upon one of those moments. Do you only need to do one limb? Technically, yes, because then I mirror it onto the other side. Since the character's walking towards you, that's all I really need to bother about. So I can waste time to refine it since duplicating it's not hard. How go your projects, Jersey? Due to my weird art style, it's hard to tell. Understandable. Early on, it can be a little hard to be able to tell how things are going, even when you master it, or are in the process of mastering it. I guess I'm 30% done with the new one. I can try to Google how this kind of style is, what this style is called, but basically I work on one layer through the whole thing. Ah, yeah. That's typically the best way to go about it. I don't know if it even has a term. Yeah, I can't remember. I didn't even separate shadows from lighting. I just go with the flow. I understand. Hope it turns out well. Just so you know, my speech will be a little bit limited tonight. Still recovering from whatever it was that hit me. So, either way. So if I don't talk as much as I normally do, folks, that's the reason why. Each day my voice has been getting just a little bit better. I couldn't have streamed last night, and definitely not the day beforehand. In fact, if I tried to stream 2 days ago, you would have heard something along the lines of this. Today is the first time I can actually feel my vocal cords again. So, even so, a little painful to go for too long. There, that's looking much better. I mean, he's a little... not quite what I was envisioning, but it's better than what he once was. Just this little bean character down here. It actually has some dimension. That's what it looks like with a background. don't think that art style has a name. That could be the case. There's a lot of art styles out there that don't have a name yet. Hey, not bad looking. Kind of feel like he needs a shadow. I feel it's like sculpting. Interesting. That's probably a good way to describe it there. All right, we have two directions here. How many frames for the whole looping runs that the whole looping run cycle has? It's 8 frames for each, which technically that would account for your typical run cycle. If I remember right, the actual run cycle is 7 frames, but 8 is like the easy to calculate version of it. Well, that means there's only one more main direction needs to be animated here, and that is the back view. And that's relatively simple because we're going to just take this one and duplicate it and do some touch-ups. Well, overall, I have to say this has been one very interesting process. I understand why some people kind of become fond of the pixel animation sort of style. But it does have a lot of limitations. And that is indeed unfortunate. Okay, let's add new frame. It's going to be empty frame. Is it easy to slow down or speed up the cycle if needed? Not as easy as in 3D. Usually to slow down the animation means you have to either you have to add more drawings or you have to delete one drawing and replace it with two. I can give you an example what that means. Let's do the bouncing ball example. Okay, so we got this right here. Bouncing square. If we want this to bounce, we can go up and back down. I'm going to increase this so it makes it a little bit more clear what's going on. someone looks at that and they'll say, well, that's way too slow. That's way too fast. It needs to be it needs to hang up in the air because it's moving way too fast. So what you have to do, because this is only one frame, you have to add in an in-between. So we see the ghost of these things here. We have it start out right here. And right here we can see a little bit of both of them. And we put something in between. And then we want something on the way back down. So then we're going to erase this. And we're going to put one in between. Now it goes up and down, but it still doesn't feel very natural. So what we're going to do is we're going to stretch it out even more. So right now it starts out here, it bounces up, and then we're going to have it hang in the air a little bit before going back on down. Now look what it's doing. It's going boing. Notice how many more drawings we're doing for this. It takes some guesswork. It takes some experimentation. So by doing this, we're able to speed it up and slow it down by adding in new frames. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it gets very, very complex. Because, let's say, for example, this ball was also rotating. And we'll show rotation by having a green portion of this. No, not green. Let's do blue. So we have this blue corner here. And let's say this ball is rotating. Sometimes that doesn't quite pan out the way that you want. Now, you can kind of see this. I know it's kind of a hard image to see. But if you have to do the bounce, well, that means you also have to do the rotation as well. So you come back in here, if you add in new drawings, you now have to redo your rotation. It's one of the best parts and one of the most frustrating parts of 2D animation. So basically when I set up this character animation, I wanted to make sure I had a very strict frame rate. And so I went with 8 frames for the walk, because it would be the easiest one to try and do. Not the easiest, but a lot easier than some other options. Especially with the pixel size of the sprites. If I had bigger sprites, I would be able to actually do something a little bit more complex. Are you working on any normal 2D art now, or are you too consumed with other projects? So I do draw every now and again, But right now, too many projects. Once this one's done, I go back to another 2D project. And also a 3D project. So this one's the consuming one. I would like to be able to do more on it. But unfortunately, human beings only have so much flexibility. That's why it's good to work with teams. Honestly, a team can help you to do far more than what one person can do. Some people turn to AI as the way to help them be a part of a team without being in an actual team. That's very bad. It actually makes you more sluggish. And I have seen that happen with a couple of people. It does make your work a little bit faster at first, but eventually it starts to backfire. I could start using AI. I have thought about it before to try and speed up some of my projects. It would cause so many problems though. Great for troubleshooting. For now. See, you're in the beginning phases. What will end up happening is you'll reach intermediate, and the advice that it gives will start to wane. I've gone on and asked AI a couple of questions in regards to Blender. At first, it was helpful. And then very quickly I realized it doesn't know what it's talking about. The reason why is because the advanced stuff is something too complex for the AI to figure out. It's kind of tough, actually, for an AI to try and troubleshoot something super tough. But then we risk getting stuck on like the most basic common denominators. That's quite an issue. I wonder if that will get worse as time goes on. Heyo, says Bizmaster. Greetings, Bizmaster. How are you doing, sir? A most unbiz greeting ever. Sorry, tail end of my illness. That's why I'm so very, give me ever unbiz greeting. How are things going for you, sir? I gotta not laugh. Ugh. I just tore my vocal cords again. Not gonna lie, I almost always enter chat with puns. Hey, there's some people that I commonly go into chats just to give jokes, so I can respect that. I had to specify every second that I'm on Blender 5.0, and it still got me tips for some old 1950s version of Blender. 1950s, wow, that's really old. I'll remain as somber as possible. You're very, very kind. I'm coming off of a week of a really severe illness that hit me. Took away my voice entirely. For about a span of 3-4 days, all I could do was sound like this, at best. And even so, it would start to disappear after a certain amount of time. So this is the first day I can actually carry on lengthy conversations. I'm feeling a bit worn out after the last month, but weekend rest will be good indeed. Hope it was nice and restful. How go your projects? Any changes? Any improvements? By the way, this is our current animation. It's getting there. Almost to the point of where we can bring it into the game. But now we're doing all the different angles of him. And so we got the side view, and now we're doing the back view. We had a little good news with the house situation this weekend, and found an affordable car as well. Hey, excellent. I haven't had a lot of time for projects in the last 4 weeks, but have been getting some progress on redrawing and fixing tile sets for my game. Hey, excellent. I think that's probably what you were working on when I've gone over to visit. House repairs should be covered by insurance. Hype. That is good to hear. Houses are expensive, and the fact that it's being covered is definitely a blessing. Up here in Alaska, we had a very big earthquake that hit back in 2018. It was a 4.0. Sorry, a 4.4. It was a 7.4. Boy, I'm tongue-tied tonight. 7.4 earthquake. And it wasn't like a normal earthquake. It was like someone had taken a giant hammer, smashed the ground, and just a shockwave that went out across. Everything just shook. Wasn't much of a rumble. It was just a quiver, and then suddenly, bam! Giant baseball bat across the side of the house. Well, it caused a lot of damage to all the homes up here. And the insurance company ran out of money because, well, everybody had damaged homes. So it made a lot of very upset people. Silly insurance companies. Well, at least Alaskan ones. And so thus, it's good to hear when an insurance company actually, follows through with things. Very good to hear. One of the other problems that can happen up here is forest fires. People will get fire insurance. They'll get earthquake insurance, flood insurance, depending. Fires can be a big problem. But another one that people don't really think about a whole lot is spring thaw will bring flood damage to homes. And so if you're in an area that feels safe, that may be the case for most of the year. But then come spring, all the ice breaks up and all the water starts to flow again. Alaska has 3 million fresh body of water up here in Alaska. That comes in the forms of lakes, ponds, and rivers. So because of that, you have to worry about one of those 3 million bodies of water flooding. And then in spring, all of it comes rushing by and piles up and then, dams up the river, and then suddenly it spills out into the surrounding area. Thankfully, I'm not in an area that's even remotely close to having something like that happen. And I did see a couple of homes for sale that were in those flood areas. And so while people are like, oh, it's just flood zones, they'll put up a barrier or two, it'll be over. No, this is Alaskan flood zones. Those, very hard to withstand those. If I ever get a chance to have my own place, I will have to keep that sort of stuff in mind. And I think there's one area here I can't quite figure out why it's not looking good. It's probably this spot right here. Probably needs to start getting into shadow here. Right now the hand's pointing forward. Then he pulls it back. Right here, this is in shadow. And this one should be in partial shadow. That's a little bit better. Well, at least I like to think that. Now we can duplicate this over onto the other side. When I think about the U.S. weather and stuff, first thing I think of are the Florida hurricanes and Midwest U.S. tornadoes. But it's the only big media thing that gets to us outsiders. You know, I knew a guy from Nicaragua, and he had tornadoes in his country. And he thought we were ridiculous for being worried about tornadoes in the American Midwest. And he was like, you people are ridiculous. We have tornadoes. We don't have a problem with it. We, in fact, go outside and play when there's tornadoes. I looked at the guy and like, you played when there's tornadoes outside? He's like, yeah. What's the big deal? I said, the big deal is because those things can bend steel. They can lift up cars and they can smash buildings into a million pieces. He said, no, that's not. That's just media hype. So I had to take him to a news channel and turned it on so I could show him the damage that was happening from tornadoes at that very storm that he was like denying their power. He's like, oh my goodness, I had no idea your tornadoes were that dangerous. I looked at him and was like, what do you think our tornadoes were? Basically, he described a dust devil. Basically something that would barely lift up an umbrella. And he thought he could just go out there in the middle of a tornado and be perfectly fine. Not realizing tornadoes can send straw so fast through the air that you become a porcupine because it just sticks into you. Tornadoes are dangerous. And they're also very random in how they strike. There was a story about somebody in the area that I lived. The sunroof on their car broke. One passenger was pulled out, and the other wasn't. Tornadoes are weird, and they should never be underestimated. I was always confused why people even lived in the South Coast U.S. or in Tornado Alley. So here's one of the reasons why. Tornadoes actually are very good for the environment. That may sound really weird, but let me explain. Tornadoes do something to the environment that is kind of akin to how a storm churns up the sea. Fish have the most food when there is a storm. In a similar sort of way, the soil starts to get nutrients put back into it that is carried with the wind. It's a fascinating thing because I don't think that, if people were not to live in a tornado area and only the farmers did, it would be beneficial. And that's one of the reasons why people live in Tornado Alley. It's because of farms. And because the farmers were there and the land was there, then people like, hey, let's build towns and cities. Not a good idea. The southern coast of the U.S., on the other hand, is more baffling because you have to have people along the coast. It's very good for business and industry and for a nation's sovereignty. But there are ways to help protect your city and town from the storms. And because people are dumb and they think, oh, this is the modern era, I'm just going to go and build right on the beach. So me and my family, we can go out and surf whenever we want. By the way, I know a couple of people that did that. And then the storm comes and they're like, oh, but it flooded. Oh, our home's destroyed. Oh no. You chose that piece of land. You wanted to risk it because you wanted the great beachfront property. If you're in Florida or you're in Louisiana or Texas, just don't live along the coast. The coast is there. Go and enjoy it, but don't live on it. But because people are lazy, they live on it. And I do mean lazy. House prices are cheaper? No. No. Housing prices along the coast are actually some of the most expensive you will find. And the properties are junk. No, the cheapest places to live are places like rundown parts of town. That's what the cheap stuff is. Coastline, that's beachfront property. Very expensive. Maybe those insurances are cheap. Oh, they try and insure it. It makes a lot of people upset when they try and do it. Flooding and tornadoes. I actually knew somebody who their home was destroyed by a tornado. And they had to buy back everything that they had lost. They got a new home. Brand new home, new location. A couple years later, they lost that home to a tornado as well. And they couldn't get everything replaced. Insurance is a weird thing. Insurance comes along and promises to make life safe, peaceful, calm, protected. When really what insurance is a way for them to extract money from you at all cost. And if you start to take from the pile, they will start increasing your price. And they'll increase it for everybody. My car insurance, which I've never had to really use, keeps going up. Why? Because people keep using it for everything. If I could, I would never get insurance. In fact, I think insurance is another tax upon you, for the most part. Now, in the US, that's the way it is. Other parts of the world, I can understand if it's not. But for the US, it has gotten so insanely expensive. I could have bought another car for the amount that I have been paying into my insurance. This baffles me so much about the US and Canada. Why do people live there? They build houses out of plywood in some areas, in such areas, yeah. So I can tell you about the wood. So over in Europe, they use a lot of brick. There's a lot of heavy timber as well. Most of the US is not suitable for brick. Most of the US doesn't have easy access to hardwoods. We are very much a softwood continent. Oh, sure, we have very big hardwood forests, but most of it's softwood, evergreens. It is not nearly as strong as what you will get in Europe. Homes also are cheaply built because our population grew so very fast and because our cities keep changing shape. And then we have policies that push people away from their homes. And cheaper became the better option. But why not brick? Why not stone? Well, the reason why is earthquakes. Europe doesn't have nearly the types of earthquakes that we have here in the US. Now, the East Coast has a lot of brick. When you get to the Midwest, the brick starts to disappear. And by the time you reach the West Coast, it is completely gone. The reason why is because around the Midwest is where the earthquakes start to appear. It's where you also get tornadoes, which brick does not do so well with. You need some sort of metal structure. But when you get to the West Coast, you need a structure that's akin to what the Japanese do, which is full timber structures that have joints in them so the building can sway. When I had to experience the great earthquake of 2018, I watched as my whole room started to bow and bend. It didn't break. The roof did not collapse in on me. The reason why is because our buildings are built with joints. You can have it shake and not fall apart. That's why we built it out of that stuff. It's actually a lot more logical than people may realize, but same thing. Americans look at the rest of the world and they think, why would you build out of this or that? And it doesn't make sense. Because each culture is going to build stuff the way that fits their local environment or their local resources. If I wanted, I would like to build a very much old world sort of house. I think it's a lot better, but I would have to find a perfect plot of land to actually be able to do that. All the perfect plots of land are already bought. And really hard to kind of go out into the wilderness and find one that would be suitable, because then that means you have to build a road out to it so you can get the materials, or even just groceries or whatnot. And also the final thing, we don't have multi-generational homes. And I think this is a great tragedy. Over in Europe, you have a lot of multi-generational homes. A lot of hand down of that stuff. But what happens is here in the US, we have a very, very severe death tax. And the ability to pass off a home becomes near impossible. Get rid of that, and hopefully you could help to motivate people to have the passing on of property. But our lawyers are cold-blooded monsters, and they will cause all sorts of pain and grief to families rather than allow them to try and work these things out. You could try Australia then. It's super empty. Alaska's pretty empty too. Australia's costs are going up, and it's starting to experience some of the problems that the U.S. has been dealing with for a while. But that being said, Australia has been on a list of places I would like to visit. Get a chance to see what it's like down there. I'd like to be able to actually travel and live for a while abroad in places like that. Japan, Australia, Germany again. Good background music. You know, it's one of the only types of background music that I will not get strike for. It took me a while to find the music that I can be able to use for that sort of stuff. But yes, Skyrim is very good music for stuff like this. I'd love to build a mansion in Australia or New Zealand maybe someday. If you go to New Zealand, you could make a hobbit hole. Oblivion is also good. Indeed. Actually, I think this one might be the from Oblivion. I don't remember. I don't know the stuff very well. But yeah, Jeremy Soule is a mastermind. Exactly. With bricks and not plywood. Oh, but Jersey, you'll still have to deal with other problems down there. You have to worry about kangaroos coming and kicking in your walls or cars. Okay, so now, what I have to basically do is extend this pant leg a little bit. This could be a completely worthless technique here, but I'm going to give it a shot all the same. Right now the foot is going out. I can tell it's going forward, so I got to reverse that. This is where things start looking a little awkward here, as I'm trying to troubleshoot the best way forward with this. But honestly, what probably needs to happen is just resketch, reanimate. So I'm going to do that right now. Can you buy a mansion under $250,000 in the U.S.? No. That gets you a shed. And I'm not joking. That gets you a shed. I visited one of these places recently. A plywood shed. Yes, basically. In fact, it's worse than a shed in some cases. There was a home up here for sale. One of the walls was missing. The other wall had a massive canopy of black mold. Another side was just damaged. All sorts of other issues. There was a giant trailer attached to the back. It looked like it was out of some sort of movie where it's going to be like some sort of suspense thriller. And they wanted to have for it, I believe it was $350,000. In that condition. So is renting cheaper in the US? No. No. But at the rate that things have been changing, it is now, for the first time in years, cheaper to rent than to buy. The difference is that if you buy, you become a slave to the bank. And then the bank can, just tell you that you're supposed to vacate your home if you miss one payment. Yes, stories like that have happened over here. So yeah, it's really, really not a good situation for homes. And right now, the president is trying to fix it. There's a lot of debate of whether or not it's actually working. But I definitely know that for myself, if nothing else, I have been unable to get a home, and it doesn't look like I'll be able to get one for a while, because I really, 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 really do not want to go into debt. Well, you know what that's going to look like then? It's going to look pretty bad for finances for basically half my life. So I'll basically get a place when I am in my old age. But at least I won't be in debt. And then I can watch as I can live in that home for probably 5-10 years before then I have to downsize to a retirement home. Oh golly, I hate our housing situation. Thanks, businesses, for destroying the economy and making it near impossible for people to, get your own place up here without, selling out your children and your grandchildren's, finances. Do you teach? Greetings, Scooby Gamer. This is the first time I've done pixel animation. Legitimate pixel animation. Most of it's 3D that I do, and if it's 2D, it's a little bit higher quality than this. But anyway, we're getting things figured out for the game that's being made. This is the front view of the character. He has the other leg, but I currently have it turned off right now. There we go. So that's what he currently looks like. And then we're just in the process of changing that so you can see it now from the back. How are you doing, Scooby? I don't teach. I got too many projects to try and bother with that. I mentor, but I don't have like any sort of courses, which is probably for the best. Everybody's got a course these days. I would just be flooding the market with more. That's one of the great things about this modern day is that we do have access to more resources and education material than ever before. And so if you really want to learn something, it's pretty easy. Most of what I learned on YouTube. In fact, not most, all of it. I didn't learn one thing from college that I can safely say has actually contributed to my professional career. Everything I had to be self-taught. It may not sound like much when I'm drawing a pixel animation, but it makes more sense when you see the stuff that one can program, things that... I got an entire website that I'm in the process of making that showcases that sort of stuff. So hopefully it becomes like super clear in the future. But in terms of just doing this, yeah, it's not like anything to write home about, honestly. Are you in the process of getting into animation yourself? This is where it needs to lift off with the foot. So I did this and I took them too far this way. So this is where the foot needs to start going forward. This is the problem when you're trying to reverse something and you're not necessarily sure the best way to kind of go about it. So now the leg is bending up. And then it goes forward. So let's just erase this part. And now it's going to be upper leg, lower leg, boot. Let's just fill it in and then texture it. Have you ever seen a tornado with your own eyes or effects of it? Yes. Are they even common in cold Alaska? They are, but they're not super common. In fact, I'm in an area that I thankfully will never see a tornado. Hopefully. No, we have something different. We have Willowaws, which basically is if a tornado went up in the air, turned upside down, and then smashed into the side of a mountain and flattens all the trees. So rather than suck up the stuff around it, it just smashes in like a hammer. America is a very dangerous place for our wilderness. And that's no exaggeration. People I've known who hear about the American experience of the wilderness, they're like, what in tarnation is going on with your continent? It's like, yep, these are the things you learn to live with. Mexican coast. That's a little south. Although the Mexican coastline, by the way, is actually very dangerous. Not to be underestimated. Alright, now this is starting to look correct. I'm looking for the silhouette right now and make sure that the silhouette looks correct. And then I'll go back and texture things. And I know it's far, but most tornadoes happen because of all the warm wind coming up from it and cooling with the Pacific one in the U.S. That is true. Alaska has something a little bit different, though. That happens for most of the U.S. Alaska has to deal with the Hawaiian winds and the winds that come up from Japan. We also have the most severe winds of all coming from the Arctic. That contrast is actually just as severe, if not more so. It just doesn't get as strong because of the temperature. But if we were in an area that was slightly warmer, it'd be just as severe as what the rest of the country gets. So there's a couple different weather regions, you could say. There is the west coast of the U.S. There is the northeast coast, and then there's the southeast, and then there's the Alaskan region. Each one of those is going to be separate, but you can basically see the main bit of the U.S. as like a gradient. It goes from not as severe to extreme severe. So the west coast doesn't get a whole lot of really bad storms, and the east coast and the south get pummeled with very severe storms, and the Midwest as well. But once you get to the west of the Rockies, not so much. It does happen on the occasion, but they have to deal with other things, like earthquakes. I don't know if earthquakes are the better thing to have to deal with, but Alaska is where you get all those things mixed in together, as well as volcanoes. In fact, last year, we came very close to having to worry about evacuation from a volcano. And thankfully, the volcano simmered down and it didn't erupt, but it very well could have. It must be super exciting. It actually kind of is. Once you learn to adjust to it, it's not bad. I mean, I'm not saying like it's not bad, like, oh, life and death sort of thing. It's not bad. No, it's not bad because once you learn to deal with it, it loses its fear factor. If I was to tell you that there is going to be a volcano that appears down your street, and you'll be initially very worried about, oh, a volcano just came up out of the ground. What's going to happen next? Is it going to blow out a plume of smoke of ash that's going to fall on us and like suffocate everybody? Is there going to be another volcano that appears? You start to get fearful because it's brand new. But if it's been there for a while, it kind of loses that fear factor. That's kind of what happens when you live in Alaska. There are savage animals everywhere. Just kind of learn to live with them. Oh, that bear looks fat and happy. You don't have to worry about it. That bear looks lean and mean. You want to get out of there. You start to get aware of these things. The ones that I can't stand are the ones where you can't see. And that's what Bizmaster has to deal with down in his continent. If I had to deal with poisonous things, I would hate it. I want to see the danger that is coming at me from a mile away. We have giant bears, giant moose, giant whales. Not much is going to surprise you. You hear it coming. But if you have to worry about a small little insect, that could be fatal. Or a snake. Ugh. I could not stand that. We don't have that in Alaska. We don't have dangerous illnesses that are from mosquitoes. We don't have massive swarms of hornets. We don't have poisonous spiders, well, except for one, but it's not that big of an issue. We don't have snakes. We don't have a whole lot of rabies. We don't have Lyme's disease. All those things together mean that everywhere is going to have its dangers. Our dangers in Alaska are big and powerful and avoidable. So it's not so nerve-wracking as it could be for some other people. We only get some big rains or Russian drones. Oh yeah, I remember what you mentioned about that. But due to global warming is supposed to be getting 50% more severe in this century. Here's a question. Is global warming actually happening? I'm not saying this to try and be, trying to be like, oh, I got a conspiracy to tell you. I'm just observant. Up here in Alaska, we were told there was going to be no ice. And we just had a very severe winter. In fact, we had a summer where the ice pack didn't break up on the northern part of the state. And so suddenly it's like, wait a minute, is it really warming? Or is the Earth going through cycles? Kind of like this animation. There's a cycle that starts to happen. Where are we on the cycle in terms of what the sun and the Earth are doing? I'm more concerned about pollution, personally. I think pollution's more devastating because it poisons the land, poisons the people, poisons the animals. I don't think the world's quite warming because I was told when I was very young that we would already be burned to a crisp. And here we are, still pressing on. If anything, it's starting to get colder. We had a massive cold wind that came through just today. In fact, I woke up and I was like, this is February, late February. Why are we going into the negatives again? And lo and behold, there's this cold wind coming from the north. Where's the wind coming from? The Arctic. The Arctic breathes. Anyway, I could actually go for, it may not seem like it, but I actually know a whole lot about this subject. That's why I kind of like tease it every now and again. It's like, I could literally lay out a very scientific reason as to how all these things happen, but some platforms don't like it, so I got to be very coded in how I say it. We don't want to get, slapped with the warning from Wikipedia. Oh my goodness, I don't want to end up on that list. And yes, I have ended up on that list before. Tornadoes are so rare and weak here that we don't even call them tornadoes, but windpipes or something like that. Yeah, whatever, it's a short-term cycle or a long-term, or I mean, either way, this century is getting more severe. There was a theory that was proposed a couple of years ago. And it was a theory that I actually found fascinating. It will be up to other people to kind of decide where they fall on it. But it gave they were observing Mars And they showed pictures of Mars over a span of, I think they said 30 years. It's pictures that were taken from a telescope. And Mars tilted. And people are like, what in tarnation? And suddenly ice caps started to grow. And then it tilted back. And they disappeared. It was very interesting to see. I won't get too political with it, but I'll just say that I know some very interesting specifics about the whole discussion. I would not be too worried about it. Just observe. Watch and observe over your lifetime. And see what happens. And if it gets worse, you'll have proof one way or the other. If it gets better, there'll be proof one way or the other. If it starts to reverse, we'll have proof one way or the other. That being said, I've lived for 35 plus years. I've seen, in my lifetime, a shift happen very, very, very clearly. And I got a sneaking suspicion, and I can't say this part without it, triggering something. But let's just say I've seen something in terms of some research that would suggest to me that we are heading in a very interesting direction. But the number one thing that I cannot stand is pollution. And yet pollution is, people have stopped talking about that. I walked by a creek and I looked out and it was simmering with chemicals. There was an oil sheen across it. There was trash in it. And I looked and there was dead fish everywhere. I'm like, this is, if you drank from that just a little bit, you would die. But you don't see a big amount of effort to try and stop that. But you will see a lot of people, panic for the future. I'd like to address the problems here and now. Now, first and foremost, we can consider the future as well. But right now, I'm noticing a lot of companies that seem to be making a lot of money pushing the future fears while conveniently sweeping under the rug or into the water a bunch of trash. Those same companies that want us to be afraid are also doing something devastatingly to our water sources. Very intriguing. Anyway, I can't go too far. Like I said, I could actually talk for this stuff for a long time. I have some inside stuff that I can talk about very easily, and so I gotta stop here. We just duke the trash out of the ocean or something. That, or we could just start cleaning. Just very easily start cleaning it. Although it would require a couple of very important things to happen. I don't know if our countries want to actually solve it. Oh, it's so annoying. Oh, it's so annoying. I come from a state that is beautiful. And you know what? If it started to disappear to trash, if people started to destroy it with pollution, oh, it'd make me so very upset. Because this place is too beautiful to just let it rot like that. And I've already seen it start to happen. And it's infuriating. I don't know why some people don't want to see it taken care of. I really don't understand why some people are just want to like look the other way. It's like, nope, nothing to see here. No, there's no problems happening with the trash or whatnot. I don't want us to end up like Bangladesh. We won't, but if you want to see a horror story, look at Bangladesh. They can't even step into their water in some places because there's so much battery acid. And they would pull out their feet, and their feet would be like red because it's like being eaten away out by acid. To look for some other planet to colonize. Oh, but see, that would reject responsibility. I would rather be responsible. Now, if we take all the people that pollute and litter, we can ship them off. But the problem is, if we can't take care of it here, we won't take care of it somewhere else. There was a guy that had a very filthy home. The house was falling to pieces, and his neighbors felt sorry for him. It's like, we'll call him George for the sake of it. They come over and say, George, you've been in this house for so long, and it's been falling to pieces. We need to get you another home. I mean, obviously, you can't live in this terrible situation any longer. And George looks at him and says, yes, I need a new home. I can't live here anymore. I feel like everything is poisonous, and there's nails sticking out everywhere, and the doors are falling off the side of the home and whatnot. I need something new. And the people decide, and they get him a new place. And they say, well, George, here's a brand new place all for you. The community pitched together, and we bought you this brand new home. Welcome, and I hope that you can find the joy of this brand new place and be able to thrive and be a part of our community. And George goes in, yes, it's been wonderful. Thank you very much. He closes the door, looks at this brand new home, and he goes over and he starts to eat something out of his fridge. They've stocked it all full of food. He left him with nice dishes. And then he eats something, and he has wrapping paper from it afterwards. He takes it, and he throws it to the side and goes and sits down. He looks back at it and says, it's just one wrapper. It's not going to do anything. And then he sits down and starts watching TV. About 3 months later, the town comes back, and they find out that George has turned his new home into a trash pile. The doors are hanging off the side of the home. There's nails sticking out of the walls. Boards are missing, and there's mold everywhere. They didn't help George. They gave him a new place to destroy. You have to change who you are first and foremost. If you can be blessed with something, wonderful. But if you don't know how to take care of the trouble and the filth now, will you take care of it when you're given something much nicer? I hate taking responsibility. Let's just scratch the earth project and move on. Aliens can rent it from us. Something like that. Anyway, that's your story for tonight. Aliens won't rent this backwater. Yeah, aren't we supposed to just leave a kind of a cute looking 3 foot by 3 foot robot to help clean up the trash? Then we just go off on vacation somewhere. Just reject responsibility. Oh wait, I think there's a movie that told us the dangers of that. By the way, WALL-E's a great movie. Definitely worth watching. Yeah, WALL-E is a good movie. So when I worked at Disney back in 2012, 2013, working at the Disney Epcot Park, I was the go-to Disney guru for the staff. I was working at a shop, and we had merchandise from from basically the entire park and just little bits and pieces here and there. It was a very neat shop, honestly, because it had a lot of variety, and we were centrally located. Great experience for people, but one of the things that would happen is people would come and say, "Hey, I am looking for Stitch, and we want a Stitch pin." And then people would look at me and say, "What Stitch? Who is Stitch?" And I would say, "Oh, well, it's this blue character from the movie Lilo and Stitch." I pull up the item and give it to them, and like, "Oh yeah, we're so happy." And they would go off, and I asked them, like, "How many Disney movies have you seen?" "Oh, I think I've seen maybe 3 or 4. And they're working at the Disney parks for many years. Like, how can you not be curious about the products that you're selling? Ridiculous. But anyway, I would go through and watch movies I was unaware of, and I spent a whole lot of time also rewatching things, and WALL-E was on that list because they were like doing some big to do with WALL-E that during that time frame, and so I remember very distinctly watching that movie when I was down there and realizing what a great classic it was. I thought you don't like AI, and suddenly you recommend a movie with 2 main characters being AI. Not AI, but predatory language AI models. There we go. Well, he wasn't. Sorry. Or that girlfriend of his. So, I can find enjoyment in a movie that mentions about AI. I will never trust a robot to actually do that sort of stuff. I don't believe that a robot can actually truly have, personality or a soul. But I can find enjoyment in a movie about it. Although I do prefer things that mention about AI, in a more realistic sort of worldview, like the Terminator or the Matrix. Golly. feel like I need to watch that movie again. What do we got against Mossels? Mossidals? Whatever the Matrix AI is not that bad. What the heck? For sure, it's just a big misunderstanding. Yeah, the way that the movie ended was a little comical, in my opinion. I'm glad the movies ended when they did. Yes, I do not take the new one as being canon. But there's something really... It's like a lot of people have lost the understanding of how dangerous this stuff can get. And I went back to watch those movies again because I was like, there's something deeply troubling about a lot of the AI revolution that I couldn't quite figure out. And I watched it again to try and see what it was that I was missing. And I realized what was so troubling. It was the character who betrays them in the first movie. I agree they're neurodivergent. How you doing? Make sure you hit that follow and smash. I think right now you're the only one on the Rumble side, so if you can do that, that's still much appreciated. How you doing, Nero? But anyway, it was the betrayal in choosing the machine that troubled me so much, because that's a big part of what's happening in our culture right now. It does make me wonder what the next generation is going to say and do about it. But I definitely can see a lot of people getting very fed up with it. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that people are getting fed up with it. But still a lot of people that are big supporters of it. Nope, I did not mean to do that. Copy and then paste. Copy and paste. Now we can mirror it. Mirror it, mirror it, mirror, 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 mirror. There we go. Now we got him walking in the other direction. Not quite the best of animations. It kind of looks like his legs are broken a little bit, but you know what? It'll look fine when it's seen from above. Or maybe it looks like he'll be doing a boogie. I don't know. I may go back and fix this later on, but honestly, for this point, it's kind of good enough to kind of let it go. Because, there's other parts of this whole project that need to be done, including making the creatures that are going to be out on the board. And I have to design them and animate them, which won't be super hard, but there's one that could be a little bit of a challenge, and so that's why I can't spend too much more time working on this guy, because I have to go back and work on the other stuff. So anyway, the character is now working, and it's a lot better than what it once was. And I can now be able to move on to that next step of the process. We have reached the 2 hour, 15 minute marker, And actually 2 hour 30-minute marker, my bad. So we're going to have to bring this to an end. This is the most talking I have done in a week. And that's all because my voice was shot for most of the week. So I don't want to stress it too much more. So we're going to call it there. Thanks, folks, for coming by, and appreciate the time you spent around here. We'll be doing a raid on the Twitch side of things. And then we will be closing it on out. By the way, if you're on a platform, kind of like what Nero said, could you consider maybe liking, subscribing? I know it doesn't mean a whole lot technically nowadays with the amount of bot activity, but you know, it still would be nice if you get the chance to do that, because then it gives me the chance to know that you are flesh and blood, because right now there's no better way to try and tell who was actually watching. Although that probably won't be the case here in a while. Who's doing art right now? Gears work. Oh, we haven't been over here for a while, so stand by as I wait for the ad to end, because, you know, ads are a plague of when you're trying to raid stuff on Twitch. And then we only have 2 over on the others on the Rumble side, so we won't be doing a raid over there. Okay, so here we go. Heading on over there in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Have a very pleasant evening and morning, everybody. Be civil to one another. Unless it's the AI, then don't be civil to that horrible AI. And we will see you next time. Until then, folks, have a very pleasant evening. And to the rest of you, much appreciated for you stopping by. We will see you next time.